And any questions from previous class? We'll start with a new service today, simple storage service S3. So this is one of the service from Amazon, and it is object oriented. In the sense we store the objects inside S3. So basically what we create is we create something called containers. So these containers are nothing but they are called buckets. Okay, so I mean, why do we need to go for S3 when we have a lot of other options in market, right? So let us say if you want to host a website, right? So what are the things we need to do? We need to buy a domain name, right? So where do we buy a domain name? Some sites like GoDaddy.com, right? So here we buy the domain name, and also something like we need to go for a plan wherein they specify some kind of storage they provide, right? So they'll be having different plans. Let us see some of the examples. GoDaddy pricing and plans. So there are some different options, like they'll offer something. Let us say I want to store some video games. I just want to host a website which hosts video games, and people will be downloading video games from that website, right? So basically I need some kind of storage, right? So that storage in terms of, let us say, GBs or TBs I need, so that people can click and download from my site. So I need to buy a plan. So basically there will be different plans based on the size, right? And some say unlimited storage and with a star condition mark, right? So if we select this, what they tell is they provide unlimited storage for the website, so we can store how much ever we need. But if you see, there will be a condition mark saying that star condition. So that condition is something like if we keep on storing the data into the site, at a certain point of time we get a mail saying that your storage capacity is exhausted, and we need to buy another plan, or pay extra amount to have a lot of other extra storage. So basically what is happening is they have a server, huge server, and they have a storage associated with, and we have to store the data on the server or the storage, or maybe they have an internal hard disk with the huge capacity. And once we start hosting the data, once we start putting the data onto the server, at certain point of time the capacity will be exhausted, right? So it will be something like multiple people will be using that, and even though they say the storage is limited, but actually in practical it is not unlimited, it is kind of limited. So they say unlimited storage, but once we start putting the data, and if it exceeds a certain amount of let us say 1 TB or so, we get a mail saying that the data limit is exceeded and we need to pay extra amount to save extra data. So to avoid all these kind of problems, Amazon has come up with a service called S3, which is like a simple storage services. And when we save the data in this kind of websites, security is also issue, right? So let us say somebody can hack the website, and somebody can put something like a .exe file. Let us say if that is a virus, that entire server will be down because of the virus, right? So this kind of security issues are there when we host the data on the website. So using S3, what we can do is, this is like something like a container service. Containers, and we can put all the data inside it. If we store something on a server, let us say .exe file, if that .exe has some problem associated with some malware or virus, that entire server will be affected. But whereas in case of S3, it's a .exe, it's an image or non-image, it doesn't matter, because S3 cannot understand the type of the image. It is just like a box where we put everything, and whenever we want, we can retrieve it. So that is what is called objects. So S3 is like a container of objects. So this is suitable in kind of when we are doing something like warm operation, right? Write once, read many times, right? When we have a scenario like we write the data once, I mean not even once means not so regularly we write the data, and we read it multiple times. So we want the data extraction to be faster, but we won't be writing the data too many times, right? We read it, we write very rarely, but we read quite often. So in those cases, S3 will be useful, right? So what do we need to do? Basically, we need to create a bucket, right? And we can have a security policy associated with whether you want to make it private or you want to make it public. Then inside a website, and we can give the link to this bucket's object. So this object can be accessed from anywhere. If we click on that link, it will internally point to S3, and from that S3 we'll be able to download the file or image or .exe file or a video game or whatever. So it doesn't care about the type of the object, and we can simply store the data inside S3. Okay, so let us try to.
So Santosh, this S3 is basically, instead of using storage from your hosting provider, use the storage from S3. It's going to be way more cheaper.
Uh, I don't say it's cheaper, but it's more secure, and
Okay.
Unlimited storage it provides.
Okay.
Okay, and
How about the email? You still have to configure your domain email, right? Your personalized emails.
sorry, emails.
Yeah. Let's say you have abc.com, that the host that something you bought. You
Okay,
also need to configure your personalized email, right, at abc.com. That email service gonna provide by the hosting provider, right?
right.
We can you configure this abc.com like the personalized email on the Amazon web emails?
No, that see, still we can use that GoDaddy site to host
Yeah,
your website. So what I'm
yeah.
telling is that storage, but storage internally that we can put it on Amazon so that we
Only
can extract from the Amazon site.
okay, only storage. Okay.
Just only storage, right? Amazon also has different storages. One is the EBS, the other is S3, the other is EFS. Okay, we'll go through them: Elastic Block Storage and Simple Storage Services and Elastic File System. But before that, let us try to create a bucket and try to put something on that. Okay. So I'll go to EC2 Management Console, Services, and S3. So there is a way to create a bucket. So I'll give some bucket name, bucket 2709-2017, and the region where do you want to store? Let us say Sydney, and then create. Okay, so there is a bucket called bucket with some name is created. Now let us go inside that bucket, and it is very simple. Something like uploading the data to this bucket is just upload, drag and drop, and we can create in folders inside the bucket. So let us say I'll just upload some file. Okay, let us download something. Okay, I'll download this. Okay, so I uploaded one file to S3. Is it upload? Let me refresh. Okay, so this file is uploaded to S3, and let us see by clicking on it. So it provides a link. Okay, so this link, using this link, we can access the image or the object, right? If you just see, okay, so access is denied. So by default, will not have access to this image. So if you want to make it public, we need to go to the properties. Sorry, here there is something called make public. Okay, and I can simply refresh the page. Let us see if that will be accessible. Right, so that whatever the image which we uploaded is on Amazon now, right? So this is S3, and we can access this using this link. So this this link we can provide anywhere inside the website or anywhere on the download. Something like if the download button is clicked, it should be internally redirected to this link, and when someone clicks on this link, they'll be automatically seeing this image, or they'll be downloading this image. So like this, we can store the images on S3. We can create the containers, we can put as many objects as possible onto that bucket, and we can use that in a website or wherever if you want to store the data, right? So something like, let us say in applications using some database, relational database or S3, and if it is like data related, something like tables and all can be inserted into a database, that time we use RDS database. But if there are files that has to be stored somewhere, then we use something like S3. Okay.
Santosh, is it kind of Dropbox?
Yeah, kind of Dropbox, wherein we can put everything. So just a container doesn't understand what kind of data it is. Is it a .exe file? Is it an image file? Anything we can put. Sometimes we get a restriction, right? If we, not now exactly, but a few days back, if we send .exe as a attachment to a mail, it will actually not work, right? It says you cannot send .exe files. So, but that kind of restriction is not there in case of S3. S3 doesn't understand what kind of data it is, so we can put whatever the data inside S3. Okay. Is this clear?
Yeah. Can we use S3 as one of the shares or external drive on your server?
No.
Okay.
See, if we want to have like that, let us say server disk. I have a server with limited capacity, let us say 10 GB a hard disk. Now I want to extend this to, let us say, another 100 GB. So how do we extend the disk?
Or we need to have like storage available either on the network or locally?
Yeah, so so basically you want to attach a disk, right, to server, to existing server, right? So as a server disk, we want to use EBS. EBS is for this purpose, elastic block storage. Or let us say there is a cluster and there are multiple servers, server 1 and server 2, and I want to share a file system or share a disk between the servers. Again, EBS is not suitable or S3 is not suitable. So we need to have something called EFS, Elastic File System. So this we need to use, right? So we would have seen first, while creating the virtual server itself, it was asking what is the hard disk size you need. So by default, it was 8 GB was given, right? Now I want to extend the file system and I want to store more data. So how do we use it? So we need to extend the file system, or we need to extend the disk. So how do we do that? We need to add another disk, right? So of certain capacity, and then we need to add that to machine, and we need to run some of the Linux commands that will extend the file system, right? So how do we do that? So there is something called EBS in EC2. So here we can create a volume, and this volume we can attach it to the running instance. Let us say I select as 1 GB, okay, and the region, etc., etc., and then create a volume, and this volume is created. Now I'll have a new volume. So this volume can be attached to a disk. So I think I don't have any running instances. Let me create a running instance and attach to that volume and see if that volume shows up on the disk. So I will take Red Hat. Launch. Choose existing key pair, the same key pair I'm using. Launch instance. While creating the instance itself, there is an option. If you see here, let me try to create this Red Hat general purpose configure instance details. So there is something called advanced details. In advanced details, there is something called user data as a file. Sorry, this is to upload a file. That file will be there on the machine once the machine comes up and running. This data, I can write a script here that will be executed when the machine is coming up. Let us say by default, when the machine is coming up, I want to install some package, right? So how do we do that automatically? Let us say I want to write a script that will be executed when the machine boots up, right? So let us say I'll just write something like bin bash, right? So this is RHEL instance. So by default, I want to install Apache and start the service. So I'll say yum install http D, and then service HTTPD start. Will this work?
No, you have to put Y switch.
Okay, so will this work? Install HTTP, let us say give star and service HTTPD start, right? And then let us say I want to write some welcome message, echo, let us say echo hello world to what is the file where www.html index.html. So by default, once the machine is up and running, I should be able to access this URL of the website, and it should give me something like this, right? So let us see if this works. Okay. Review and launch. Launch. So I'm launching another instance. So there should be two instances created. One with the advanced the text as the input. So I have written a shell script that should be getting executed when the machine is coming up. Okay. So I have this machine ready. This is the public IP. So let us try to log in and attach a EBS. And after this comes up, we'll see whether HTTPD is accessible. Okay. So this machine is ready. So let us go to the same key pair with high option, the PEM file, and the username and the IP address. Okay, so I log in as root. So how do we check the number of disks available on a machine?
fdisk -L.
Yeah, fdisk-L, right? Or there is also another way, right? lsblk. Using this also we can check the disk available and the volume groups inside it. So this is a disk by default we got, right? Now let us say I want to add another disk to this server. How do we add? So we need to go to EC2 and request another volume, and that volume we need to attach it to this server, right? So we have already created a volume of 1 GB, right? So this I want to attach it to the server, and this is like at a time we can attach it to only one volume. If we attach it, the status changes to in use, and we cannot attach to a server. We cannot attach this volume which is already in use to a server. So this is like can be attached to only a single server. In a sense, it cannot be shared between the two servers. So I'll just say attach a volume and instance ID, no matching or running stop instances found. So this is within the availability zone. So let us see what is the availability zone which we have created. So this is created in US East 1A. And where are my EC2 instances created? Okay, US East 1C. So let me create the volume also in US East 1C. I'll just delete this. So this volume can be attached to instance which is running in the same availability zone. So availability zone is like something like a data center. Delete and create a volume of 1 GB, and here I select availability zone as US East 1C. Okay, so this should create a new volume. So before that, let me try to log into another machine as well and see if it has HTTPs installed. So let me see, directly go to this IP and try to access. If HTTP is installed successfully, it should show a message here on the URL. Let us see if this gets executed.
I think it is still in a initializing state.
No, this is fine, right? Running. Maybe the command which you have given is not correct. Okay, let us see by logging into that. If HTTP is installed and Apache is running. So I'll just open a new terminal and SSH-i keypair EC2 user the rate. Okay, machine is up. HTTP is installed. Service HTTP status. HTTPD status. Okay, the problem is we have installed HTTP and started the service, but we have forgot to do one more thing. What is it?
Restart.
No. I mean, so by default, we just install the package even when the machine is booting up.
Port
So in the service group, we need to allow this. So then it should work, right? So I'll go to the, how do we allow the port? How do we allow the incoming traffic? By modifying?
By adding a port, yeah. So add a new port.
Security group, changing security group settings.
Yes. In security group, we have two things. One is inbound, the other is outbound, right? So here by default, we have SSH access. Here outbound, we allow all the traffic, right? So SSH is allowed by default, and if you want to allow some other services, we need to enable HTTP. How do we allow pinging the instance? To ping the instance, what do we need to do?
ICMP,
We
should allow
allow
ICMP.
ICMP. Okay, so let me go to this, and there is something called security group. Inside the security group, inbound inside that edit, and we'll add a rule. HTTP save okay, so whatever the message we have given, it is appearing here, right? So let us say there is something called I said we'll try deploying a website to EC2 instance, right? So there is a site which provides the templates, the website templates, wherein we can directly copy the template to the EC2 instances and get the website up and running on the same IP, right? So there is something called Open Designs. So I want my website to be look like this. So I want to deploy this kind of website to this kind of template to instance. So how do we do that? I simply need to download this Blue Skies to downloads, save it. Now I need to copy this template to the instance, right? So how do we copy? So let me open another terminal and go to downloads, and from there I want to copy the Blue Skies website. So scp-i key pair, and then what is the name of the file? blueskies.zip. Then what is the IP address? Sorry, I need to give the public IP. Okay, this IP. EC2 user, let us say, and then this website, and then, sorry, let us say I want to copy it to temp. Okay, so this file is copied to this instance. So scp-i key pair. So how do we use key pair to log into the instance? Same way we can use to transfer the files from desktop to the instance. So this is the EC2 instance. I copied as EC2 user, and if I copy same thing as root user, will it work? Let us say I want to copy it to /root. So basically, by default, root user login is disabled. So if we want to enable, how do we do that?
You have to go to sssd_config.
Yeah, so we need to log into SSH and permit root login equal to yes, and restart SSH and set the password. Then without using this PEM file only, we'll be able to log into the instance, right? So by default, copying the file as EC2 user is allowed because this file is configured, created for the EC2 user. So we cannot log into instance directly as root. We need to log in as EC2 user. Then if we want to copy the file also, we need to copy as EC2 user. Okay. By default, if SSH is not enabled for root. Now I have the file ready on the instance, right? So let me go to the instance, and there is, I copied to temp. So this is the website. Now I'll go to var www.html, and I'll copy this blueskies.zip here, and I'll just extract, unzip. Unzip is not there. Yum install unzip. So by default, there are some files which are not available. Those we can install using yum install and the package name. Unzip is not available, so I install unzip. Then I'll just unzip blueskies.zip. So this is extracted. Blueskies is extracted, right? So I need to move all these files to HTML, right? So files should be present in the HTML directory. So I just copied the zip file to var www.html, and I have put all the files inside the HTML directory, right? I can remove these two things. Not required, not required. Okay, so now I have this thing. So let us see if I refresh this website, what happens. Okay, so I have my website set up on my EC2 instance, right? Okay, so let us say I want to have customized message. So let me go to index.html, and there is something like, let us say, Blue Skies, some company slogan here. So search for slogan, So we can change something here. Welcome to EC2. Instead of blue skies, I can write whatever. DevOps. And if I save it and refresh, I have something like customized message, right? Sorry. So the same thing if you want to set up using Ansible. So what are the things we need to do?
Install Ansible package and create keys and push the key public key to these points.
Okay, so let us say I want to set up, I have, let us say 10 instances, and on all 9 instances I want to set up this website. So one server, I'll make it as Ansible server, and all other remaining 9 server, I'll make it as slaves or agents. Then we need to write a playbook. In that playbook, what are the things we write? We basically write what are the modules we write? Package, service, and then what is the other one? Basically, you want to copy the entire website to the machine instance, and then we need to extract it.
Copy, I think. File or copy, I think.
Copy or template. Template is to copy the text files. Copy is to copy the non-text files. So we can either use copy and copy the entire directory to the instance, and then we can execute a command to unzip. So that will make that var www HTML directory. Then we can access the website using this link. Right? Is this clear?
Yeah.
On multiple machine, this website can be hosted.
So basically, we are posting this website on 9 instances of Ansible, just for the sake example, like.
Yeah, I just said what do we do? This is a, let us say, real-time example. I want to do that. How do we do that?
Okay. But normally we just gonna. I was thinking from like high availability perspective, like for the same site we on 9 different instances.
No, I'll come to that actually. Availability. So we have not yet completed EC2. In EC2, we have something called load balancer. And we have something called auto scaling, right? Which is for high availability and reliability. Let us say I have created one instance and suddenly the load is high on the website. Now, based on the CPU utilization or based on the memory utilization, I want it to scale automatically to multiple instances. That we do using auto scaling, right? So let us say minimum is 1, maximum is 4 based on the usage. Let us say I can set an alarm like this, and if this criteria is met, let us say CPU utilization is reaching more than 80%, so it will automatically spins up VMs. Okay, one at a time it will spin and it will make 4 instances ready. That we'll see, and also we'll see load balancer wherein the traffic is redirected to different instances based on the load. Okay, so we deployed a website onto EC2 instance. We enabled the security group. We allowed HTTP. Then we are able to access the website. Now the other thing is attaching the EBS storage, right? So EBS, we created a volume, attach it to the instance. Once attached, access, check how this volume can be accessed inside the instance, right? So let me go to the instance, which is my first instance, and then try to attach the the volume to so yes, now this is created in US East 1C, which is this is available. The first one is available. So this can be attached to a single instance. So I'll just go and attach volume. So there are two instances running, and this is the ID. There is the ID associated with each instance, and the device is div SDF. So by default, this will be attached. Okay, attach.
Santosh, why it is taking SDF? Why did it take SDB or SDC?
Which one?
The drive letter SDF.
Yeah, that we'll see. Once this this is attached, we'll see how it gets attached. Okay. Okay, it is attached. Now I have the instance ready. So what is the instance where we attached? We have attached it to this instance. What is that? D3. Okay. So now let me go to instances, and this is the instance which is attached. And what is the IP? 187. So let me go to this instance. Okay, not this one. I'll just exit. Okay, so I have this instance. If I do lsblk, there is one hard disk which is 10 GB in size, and if I see fdisk-l also, there is only one disk. Now I attached the disk to this instance. So how do we refresh? How do we make sure that how do we refresh the hardware configuration so that that new disk comes up here? The new disk appears here, right? So what is the command to refresh?
I think echoing the bus.
Sorry, what is it?
Echo 6
Echo?
class. Yeah, echo colon double quotes dash dash dash.
Okay, yeah, that works, but there is a simple command that we can do. So simply it will refresh the configuration, right? So there is something called, so now lsblk, the block devices is showing. Now if I do part probe, this is a command to refresh the hardware configuration. Now if I do lsblk, is this the instance which I attached? This should show a new disk. Okay, it is not showing up.
I think first it scanned the bus, I think.
One minute, let me see. Okay, I think we are in the wrong instance. We have to log into 187. Okay, sudo su hyphen. Now if I do lsblk or fdisk, okay, it's already automatically attached. So this is the volume which it is attached. So this is attached as xvdf, right? So to refresh the hardware configuration when we attach a volume, lsblk is the command. Sorry, lsblk is to see part probe. So basically this probes all the parts which are attached newly to the machine. If any hard disk is added newly, if that doesn't come up by default, if we execute part probe, all the hardware configuration will be refreshed, right? Now lsblk or fdisk-l we can use to see the volumes available.
BLK stands for like bulk, BLK.
block storage.
Okay. And like for part prob, like even if you attach a new USB drive, is it only for to refresh that one also part prob?
Yes, any device which we
Okay.
attach, it will refresh.
Okay.
Okay, so this new block device is added to the machine. Now we'll also see how to create a volume in it, how to create a logical group on it, how to create a volume group on it, and then how to create file system on it, and how do we use this to extend this file system, right? Now this is 10 GB, and if we extend it, this has to be added to this, right? We can extend the file system, or we can create a new file system and we can mount the file system to this machine, right? So there are commands to do that. So basically we need to extend the file system. So first one, what we need to do is we need to create a volume group, create a logical volume, right? Create a file system, and then mount the file system, right? So these are the things which we need to perform once a new disk is added. So on the new disk, first we need to create a partition, that using fdisk-l command. Then we need to create a volume group, so we can create a logical volume, file system and all. So why are these things are required? So basically, let us say I have a huge disk of 100 GB and I don't want to store it entire all the files on 100 GB directly. I want to divide the disk into different partitions, each for a different purpose, and I want to create a volume group in it, logical volume in it, file system in it. Then I want to use it for a specific purpose. Let us say I divide that disk into 10 parts, 10 GB each. Then I create file system on it, so that files will be created on each file system, right? Let us say this is FS1, file system 1, and this is FS2. So like this, I want to divide my file systems of 10 GB size, and I want to attach it to the machine. I want to mount it to the machine, so that when I say df-h, all these file systems will be displayed, right? Or we can do this way, or if there is any existing file system, we can also extend it, right? So now this is the file system we have. It has 10 GB. Now I want to extend this to, let us say, 20 GB. So I need to add a volume of 10 GB, and I need to execute some commands that will extend this file system to 20 GB. Or I can create a new file system, let us say something FS1, and it will be shown up here. Okay. And we'll also,
when you do df-h, why it didn't show the volume, the 1 GB one that we created?
this volume we just attached, but it is not yet in use, right? So it is just a disk. Now we need to create a file system. Yeah.
Santosh, that root file system is not part of volume group. We cannot extend, right?
We can extend root file system.
It's not a volume.
We'll see that tomorrow, how to extend the volume group. Okay. See, we attached the disk, but it's not yet in use. It's just attached, but we need to create the partitions on it. We need to create the file system on it to show up here. Okay.
Okay. One last thing, you mentioned about the root access. How to enable the root access? You mentioned I have to enable the SSH first and then root. Because right now we have EC2 user, right? How we can
see, this is actually not recommended, but we have seen this in Ansible, right? So there is something called permit root login is equal to yes, and then we need to set a password to root. But generally on EC2 instances we should never do, because we should always use the M file to login. But if you still want to do it, we can do it this way.
Okay. Because so the EC2 user have like similar access like root access. It can do all the job like root can do, EC2?
No, it cannot do. It's just a EC2 user is to log in, after logging in, we need to again switch to sudo to perform root.
Okay, so keep the EC2 to log in, and then you can always switch, and you always want to perform whatever you want to perform, right?
Right, yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So there is also something else. One is AMI, Amazon Machine image, right? So that we created. So this is like a pre-installed image. Now we can customize this, right? So how do we customize? Let us say I have one AMI. I create instance out of it, right? I make some customization, install application or install a lot of packages. Then again, I can create a image out of this running instance, and I can use this image for any future deployments, right? So I don't have to do the customization again. So that also we'll see, and we'll see extending the file system, attaching the file system, that kind of stuff. What else is there in? And we'll go to load balancer and auto scaling. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.